So before we practice together, I wanted to speak for a few moments about two qualities that I think are kind of at the heart of mindfulness practice: attention and intention. And in the context of mindfulness, attention and intention are really inseparable. If we were just going to state it simply to begin with, we might say attention is the how we practice, and intention is the why we practice. But I'd like to go maybe dig a little deeper into the two terms and what they might have to say about the practice and also about our lives, as we hope to be influenced by the practice in our lives. And as I've been doing for the past few weeks, I'll draw on some comments from the preeminent Buddhist scholar Bhikkhu Analayo and also the founder of mindfulness-based stress reduction, Jon Kabat-Zinn. And I highly recommend you read these two influential authors. Um, so I like to start when I'm looking at words to kind of really dig in just a little bit on the etymology of the word attention and intention, because I think when we look at the roots, it does reveal something, I think, somewhat profound about the nature of mindfulness. And because both words come from the same Latin root, tendere, which means to stretch or to extend. Attention comes from uh, that root, tendere, and it adds the ad part, the prefix is ad, which means toward. So taken together, that means to stretch toward something. So to pay attention is literally stretching the mind towards something. And in the practice, we, in that sense, stretch our awareness to the present moment object that we're using our senses to perceive. And sometimes that's called uh, the present moment object of awareness. Intention comes from that same root, tendere, and it adds the prefix in or into. And so taken together, it means to stretch inward, or sometimes you might even translate as that as to aim inward. So this points to this inner orientation as well as this paying attention to some exterior kind of object of awareness. Um, so attention and intention are not separate concepts, but two expressions of movement. Maybe we could even say movement of the heart and movement of the mind. One expresses the stretching of our awareness, the other expresses the stretching of our purpose in the practice. So in the practice, we direct the attention as we could say as like directing the beam of light on some kind of sense object, the breath, the body, sounds, thoughts, emotions as they arise. But we also see that mindfulness is attention that's infused with intention. The intention to practice in this way so that we might be more kind, more patient, more curious, more non reactive, what we summarily refer to as non judgmental awareness. If the attention is the spotlight, the beam of light, then the intention is the hand that positions it. Maybe is one way to think about that. Kabat-Zinn often speaks of intention as inherently connected to non-harming, compassion, and care. And he explains that intention forms the ethical backbone of mindfulness, helping the practice remain compassionate and open and non-judgmental, not just a kind of self-help or self-fixing kind of practice. In his foundational book, Full Catastrophe Living, Kabat-Zinn says, the attitude you bring to the practice is crucial. Intention shapes attention. Your intentions set the stage for what is possible, he says. They remind you why you were practicing in the first place. The Christian contemplative teacher, Cynthia Bourgeau, echoes this when she says that intention is the quality of your inner orientation. She adds the compass that quietly organizes the whole experience. So it's important to be in touch with both and not just be paying attention, but be paying attention in a certain way. So intention becomes this kind of steady inner compass in the practice. It orients us in a certain direction. We usually just say that broadly, that it's a non-judgmental awareness that describes the intention. Non-judgmental, but there's a lot of other words you could say about that. And ultimately, it's about meeting each moment with this kind of openness and purposefulness. And as Kabat-Zinn says, to live as if life really mattered. So Biko Analio says that about intention and the practice. He says that our responsibility is to set up the intention to be mindful and return to that intention whenever we notice that the mind has been lost. So that's a little bit of a nuance in the practice. We always say, well, when you notice that your mind has wandered off, bring your attention back. Here, Analio is also saying, recommit to your intention when you notice that your mind has gone off. Why would you bring it back to the present moment object of awareness in the first place? Why does it matter? And I think partly why that matters is what mindfulness has to offer. It opens us up to the real possibility of living life in a new kind of way, of reaching deeper into our capacity for love and compassion, kindness, understanding. And it can free us from hatred and prejudice and self-interest and ill will and all the things that kind of plague us in our life, not just personally, but globally. So Analio says that the goal is inner transformation that lasts, that we would have a whole kind of new way of seeing and being. And meditation practice should result in this kind of improvement in the way we act in the world, how we relate to others, and how we deal with our own kind of outer circumstances. These are internal changes that happen through the practice that then manifest externally in our relationships and in our dealings with life's events. And the practice can help cultivate the exterior changing, making these changes that can also then kind of dovetail back into changing our intention and recommitting on our intention. So there are these two dynamics going on of inner and outer work, or sometimes referred to as the path and the fruit. Path being the practice and the fruit being the transformation that gets expressed in our daily lives. For me, I don't know about anybody else, but it's often much easier to sit each morning meditating in the early light of the new day than to go out into the world and try to be kind and compassionate towards others. But staying on the cushion the whole time is not the goal. There needs to be a counterbalancing of bearing good fruit in the world. So both are important and necessary to living what we might call an enlightened life. So with that, let's practice together. And perhaps we can begin this practice with a simple intention. You might pause for a moment with that. What is my intention in being here and in practicing this practice of mindfulness? Analio, he suggests one that you might say to yourself or something similar. May I progress on the path to liberation for my own benefit and for the benefit of others, or benefit of the world, you could say. So what might that be for you? The kind of heart of the practice for you, the intention that you hope for or wish for or mean to happen for you as you practice or as a result of the practice. And you can make that as simple as possible. So here we're adding to our practice an intentional way of coming to it, reminding ourselves. And once we do that, we then can turn our attention to this moment, informed by that intention, knowing why we do it, why we come back when we notice the mind going off, what we hope to do in sitting here. That's why we're reminded each time of everything that can draw our attention in the moment and also can cultivate this intention. And that includes the physical part of the posture in the practice, that shows intentionality also. That you're sitting upright but relaxed in the chair or on the cushion on the floor. That the hands come to rest on the legs or gathered together in the lap. And that we cast our eyes down or even close the eyes to remind us of this inner movement as well as this outer movement of sitting here. We have the inner movement of looking within. And then you choose a present moment anchor of awareness or object of attention. Could be the breath, could be the sensation of sitting here, could be present moment sounds. Let this be whatever it is you choose to be the anchor or home base for your awareness. And when your attention is lost, bring it back to this anchor and reminding yourself why you do so over and over and over. And notice the mind wandering into getting caught up in certain thoughts or emotions or memories, storylines. And once you discover this, that the mind has gone off, it's no problem. It's going to happen. It's meant to happen. It's the way the mind works. So let your intention soften. You don't have to wrestle with the mind going off. Just acknowledge a wandering mind and gently guide your attention back to that present moment object of awareness. So in that sense, it's powerful practice, but it's a gentle practice. And it's not the going off that is the focus of the practice. It's the returning each time the mind goes off. That alone could be your intention, that I choose to return each and every time, even when it's tempting to get caught up in that thought. So be patient with yourself and be curious and be non judgmental. Here's an excerpt from a poem by John O'Donohue entitled Morning Offering. It speaks to intentionality and purpose. I place on the altar of dawn the quiet loyalty of breath. May my mind come alive today to the invisible geography that invites me to new frontiers, to break the dead shell of yesterdays, to risk being disturbed and changed. May I have the courage today to live the life that I would love, to postpone my dream no longer, but do at last what I came here for, and waste my heart on fear no more. So we have about 4 or 5 minutes for comments or questions or wonderings, insights, whatever.